All right, 7:30. It is Wednesday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Jaron Owen in studio and Nathan on the line. We're talking football because there's lots of stories to get to. We're also going to end up talking boxing because it turns out Bernard Dunn has officially left the Irish Amateur Boxing Association in the aftermath of a pre-Olympics dossier that was anonymously leaked, which was critical of his role. He obviously went and was part of the backroom team that did really, really well at the Olympic Games and looks like somebody who is going to be a massive loss to Irish boxing. So it appears as if Irish boxing has once again shot itself in the foot. That's a Vincent Hogan exclusive on the back of The Independent this morning. Talk about that a little bit later on as well. In the meantime, though, Chelsea, the sale is looking a little bit fractured. One of the Kilcoo players has said he doesn't want to play for Down and that most of his teammates don't want to play for Down, that the whole situation is a shambles. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. And whatever you're having, hashtag is OTB AM. You can text us this morning, 0879 180 180. Nathan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
When it was 2-0 to Villarreal last night at half-time, was it like, this is fine, this is no big deal, this is totally to be expected, we've seen this before from this Liverpool team? Or are you like, oh my God, what the hell's happening here?
A little bit of both, because we haven't seen this from this Liverpool team certainly over this season. They've had a level of consistency where the craziness that maybe marked the first few years of the Klopp reign, where it was a bit go, 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 as John Giles always said, and a bit helter-skelter, they've far more control this season. So to put in their worst 45 minutes of the season away from home at Villarreal, you were going in at halftime thinking, another one of these brilliant European nights, but this time it's Liverpool are on the wrong end of it. But I did feel at halftime when Villarreal hadn't got the third goal that at 2-0, Liverpool had the bench. And I think that was the most reassuring aspect for Liverpool supporters was Jordan Henderson, Luis Diaz. Everybody's expecting both of them to come on. In the end, it was just Diaz who came on at halftime. But they've shown consistently over the past few months that when they make changes, they make an impact. And the second Diaz came on, it was a totally different game. His willingness to get on the ball, his want to just run at Villarreal again and again and again, and the threat that he posed just seemed to up everything for Liverpool. But because it was 2-2 on aggregate, if they were 2-0 down and it was 2-0 on aggregate, I think you would have fancied Villarreal with all their European experience and their know-how to hold out. But Liverpool have just so much depth and so much talent and an ability to win any type of game at the moment. When you look back at what they've done over the last couple of weeks, depending on the opponent, I think a lot of people expected Liverpool to see that out in the second half.
We did say on the show yesterday, Owen, that crazy things happened in the Champions League semi-final, and crazy things did happen in that first half.
Like it's interesting. Like it's what was the problem for Liverpool in that first half? Like Andy Robertson was kind of comparing the Madrigal to Anfield afterwards last night, and I think that probably does come into it a little bit. Like you look at the passing accuracy stats, it went from 66% up to 84%. If you compare the first half to the second half, that sloppiness in the first half is just kind of so unbecoming of Liverpool, and probably the environment is one of the explaining reasons for it. But of course, when you have someone like Luis Diaz to bring in, it's going to make your team a lot better. Jurgen Klopp went all Jay-Z after the game and was like, we had 11 problems in the first half. He didn't want to pin it down on Thiago Jota per se. And he also said that he went to one of his coaches and said, find me one good clip from that first half so we can show it to the lads at halftime to give them some confidence. And he said, we have no clips. And that was one of the interesting bits from last night. Like, I didn't really realise that Klopp uses video analysis at halftime in the dressing room, or that coaches do it full stop. So that's
I assume it's quick fire, one or two things. Here's an obvious error that we have made, go fix it. Or here's something that we're doing that's working time and time again, just do it again. There's no point having about 3 analysts in the stadium and about 4 more sitting at home doing all this work if you're not going to use it.
Yeah, I suppose I guess it's a fair point.
They're using it in like junior C football matches now.
Yeah, but I would have thought it was in
Come on, you don't think Liverpool think like a multi-billion-dollar enterprise at half-time, or like here's a little video clip?
But I thought it was just all in the aftermath of the game, really.
The Kerry footballers are doing it.
Yeah, I just thought it was all in the aftermath of the game. I just like at half-time, it's like, what are you going to achieve? What are you going to achieve at half-time in the game when you got like 15 minutes and people are wrecked?
I mean,
Mayo 2006 were the last team not to do it. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
If only we'd had someone going, big guy up front. Turns out they've started the big guy at full forward. Maybe
oh, Jesus, the ghosts.
I think it was obviously the intensity that Villarreal brought. Like, Liverpool should have been expecting it. There's no way Villarreal were just going to roll over at home in a European semi-final. But maybe because they were, I don't want to say so poor last week, but offered so little going forward, that Liverpool thought it'd be a similar type of game. But Villarreal were at them, and it was a game that didn't suit Thiago, the speed. They were just running by him.
Let's just talk about that. Let's just talk about that. Because Thiago is the best footballer in the world, according to the my Liverpool feed, the feed of Liverpool fans over the last 3 months. Like, untouchable. Perhaps the best midfielder. I don't know. I can't actually remember anybody as good. Pirlo in the World Cup in 2006 is the only comparison.
You see, now what you're trying to do here is to build it up so much that when it doesn't happen...
That's what Liverpool fans have been telling me. Like, best footballer in the world territory last couple of months. Salah, excellent. But really, the change that is going to sweep the quadruple for them has been...
So you don't think
ascension of
Thiago
to the high plains of like an echelon that he looks down on the rest of humanity. He is Jesus being tempted by Satan at the top of Mount Tibidabo. Look down here. You can have all this, Jesus. All you've got to do is take this forbidden fruit. Thiago took the forbidden fruit and he owns everything. So what happened to him last night? How is it that a team of Premier League misfits could send him so off his game that he's passing the ball to the touchline like it's in the Phoenix Park?
Well, how is it that a team of Premier League misfits managed to get themselves all the way to a Champions League semi-final?
Well, that's a different question. Answer my question.
Good management.
Yeah.
It's an area he struggles with. I thought in the game against Manchester City, where in one way he was the player who dragged Liverpool back into it. You saw both sides of him. First Manchester City opportunity for Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne just strolls past him. That when he's on the back foot, when players are running at him, that's not the strong part of his game. The strong part of his game when he gets on the ball. So I think... he didn't have a split second. They just ran at him. Defensively, he wasn't able to keep up with it. And he looked a bit rattled. Like, some of those passes he played in the first half were so out of character. Like, basic stuff for a player of Thiago's calibre. And maybe there's something that other teams will have seen there with Liverpool last night that they can get at. Like, the entire midfield unit. Keita had a complete nightmare in the first half. I'm always surprised when I see a Liverpool 11 for a game of this magnitude and Henderson isn't starting. He is the man on nights like that. He is the one who sets the tone, who gets a grip of things, who makes sure that there's no sloppiness. So for Keita, who does seem to be first choice for the European games, and the decisions that Klopp now has for a Champions League final in terms of centre back, centre midfield, and which of the three start up front are huge. But that was as poor as Liverpool have played all season in that first 45. And Thiago, Keita, Andy Robertson, who again, the last few weeks, everyone's been raving about his form. That first goal, needs to be more aware, needs to get out in front. Trent didn't cover himself in glory for the second goal either. So it was a bad 45 minutes. But the thing that Klopp will look at, I think, is been able to turn around to that bench and know he has several players now who can come on and who can change the course of a game.
Of the players who started for Liverpool last night, do you want to guess who had the best passing accuracy?
Van Dijk.
Thiago. 84.3% according to Who Scored. So this was just like a first half problem that got remedied in the second half. And also when you look at the guy passing out of play, that just is like, oh, he's completely off his game, when actually they were just the more extraordinary moments. And also in the first half, it kind of felt like they could have used Thiago more. They could have gone through Thiago a lot more when they were just playing these balls over the top. And it was like these balls, I'm not sure, were they just constantly overhitting them? Was the Villarreal line too high and they're not used to coming up against a high line? I'm not sure what it was. But I thought they could have gone through midfield more in the first half. And the stats at the end showed that Thiago actually really, when it comes to passing accuracy, which is the thing that you're criticising him for.
Well, Thiago's always going to be pretty close to the top because the vast majority of his passes are the simple little 5-yard passes. It's
sideways.
But no, Alisson and the centre back should be top of the passing accuracy. Like, they're the most sideways passes.
Do you know this from other previous matches?
No, but I think it's the... Listen, I don't want to say it's the Joe Allen effect, but, it's the...
He's the Spanish Joe Allen. Is that what you're saying about Thiago?
No, I think...
is that what I just heard? He's the Spanish Joe Allen.
That's not your headline.
That's the headline. At Nathan Murph. He's the Spanish Joe Allen.
Joe
Brendan
Allen looked like he was the Welsh Thiago at one stage of his career, but it never quite went that way, unfortunately, for Joe.
Okay, I think we could get sidetracked down a Thiago-sized hole. He was there was somebody. Anyway, it's too early in the morning.
Listen, you can also you need to be obviously looking at teams and picking holes and all that, but they are back in another Champions League final, a third Champions League final in 5 years, which is pretty insane.
I'd love to have seen last night's performance against Bayern to see what would have happened. We were talking about the team are 7th in
but
the
maybe
league
it never happens against Bayern. Maybe it never happens
because there's no complacency.
There's no complacency.
So there was a bit of complacency at 2-0, and I think that's probably understandable. Like, there's big games. It's like, this one's going to be easy enough for us. And just the way the team was changed and everybody was like, he was able to rest players at the weekend. It's a really difficult balancing act, and they managed to come through it. I think that's really all that matters. John Wayne on acid is the YouTube user. I hope you're only microdosing as opposed to dropping full tabs, John. He's wondering, was the slippy pitch the reason for Thiago being terrible? I would have thought the slippy pitch would have elevated Thiago's skill set even higher and made him stand out. Maybe I never.
Maybe
understand.
The heaviness meant that his radar is slightly off, that the ball isn't travelling the way he quite expects.
Yeah, I always thought that like bad conditions would elevate the best players' skill sets, but there's the other argument that it's the great equaliser in terms of bringing mediocre players up to good players. Virgil van Dijk is the best centre-back of all time, says Michael Owen. I've never seen anyone else like him. This was on BT Sport last night. It wasn't his best performance last night, though, was it? Like, no, Virgil was not good.
No, it's an interesting time to make that take. Like, I presume there's a lot of people who'll go along with that. Full stop. He's definitely the best in the world at the moment, and I think obviously he's come back so well from that injury, because there were definitely a lot of questions, I thought, at the start of the season about his that yard of pace that maybe he had lost when you were judging him by best defender in the world standard. And I think he's got himself back to that level. So that's been one of the reasons why Liverpool have gone on this run now, and they're going to play every possible game this season, which is the first time an English team have done that. So being fit, having a fully fit squad is something that Jurgen Klopp has definitely needed. For me, one of the most interesting things after the game was Mo Salah coming out saying, I want to play Real Madrid. If you're asking me personally, I want to play Real Madrid. And like, we had this a bit of a debate last week about is like, what danger would Real Madrid pose compared to Manchester City? Of course, Manchester City are a better team, but there is just something about this Real Madrid team that would make anybody nervous, I think, especially with the manager that they have and some of the players that they have and the maturity of that squad. And I think after what Salah's saying there, I kind of want to see this now. Like, I mean, we've got some fantastic Manchester City-Liverpool games already this season, and yes, they're the two best teams in Europe, and yes, everybody will probably want that final. But I kind of want to see Salah against Real Madrid again. Granted, there will be no Sergio Ramos this time, and that's really the revenge mission that he's personally after. That's his personal crusade. But I think this Liverpool team against Ancelotti, I think that'd be a good matchup.
It was a brilliant interview with Salah after the game. He's incredibly honest. He was asked several questions that you presumed any footballer just after a Champions League semi-final would say nothing. Even when he was asked, would you prefer Manchester City or Real Madrid, the obvious stock answer is, I don't really care at this stage. But he was definite that it was Real Madrid he wanted to play. And you can understand from Mo Salah's point of view, revenge has to be a huge factor for him. When you think of the impact that the arm injury had on him at that stage, when at that time we thought it was the peak of his powers, it turns out he got even better. But he will feel that cost him a Champions League and him maybe being the best player in the world even back then. So maybe there's a little bit which I thought he was going to say, which would be even more honest, that we've seen what Manchester City are like, and they're a much better team than Real Madrid. So obviously we don't want to face them. But he was asked straight afterwards as to the amount of goals he scored, 30 goals, 15 assists, was sort of rubbing it into Trent Alexander-Arnold, how he wouldn't be happy that he now has more assists this season. Then said, actually, assists don't matter that much. It's all about scoring goals. And he was asked by Jake Humphrey, what do you set a goal at the start of the season? Again, you expect, oh yeah, but wouldn't say 40 goals. 40 goals is what I thought at the start of the season. I've got 30, so I've got a little bit to go.
Will he get 10 goals in the final month of the season?
I think if he gets 10 goals in the final month of the season, Liverpool will probably win everything.
Liverpool's average pass accuracy over the course of the 34 matches played in the Premier League is 85%. So that's the whole team's average, which means that obviously loads of players have to be over that average. So Thiago was at 85% last night, was he? Was that your figure?
I think so, yeah, or just below it.
Well, in the first half, they dropped to what last night? Was it 66%, 67%?
Yeah. 66 up to, and then 84 in the second. So even in the second half, they were below their season average. They went pitch.
Thiago's average over the course of the season is 89%.
There you go.
So 4% off his average. Not that bad. It's just more pronounced, the errors in a bigger game. He's racking up those stats against your Villas, your
Manchester Cities.
Did he do it against Manchester City in the first game?
In the first game, no, but I think in the second game I remember him playing in the first game. In the second game, he was a very different player.
The cup game? Are you talking about the cup game?
No, I'm talking about the league game.
Right.
The 2-2 where it was his ball that really dragged Liverpool back into it when City were rampant in the early stages of that game.
No, you're right. He's the best player in the world. You're right. It's true.
I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, and I wouldn't have been sure 2-3 months ago if he'd be in Liverpool's starting 11 for a Champions League final, whereas I think now he is absolutely nailed on. I would be interested to see what Liverpool fans think Klopp should do for the Champions League final, because it has felt all season that Matip has been the number one and has arguably been Liverpool's best centre-back all season. But Konate has been starting all the European games. So for a Champions League final, do you stick with Konate? Do you bring Matip back in?
No, you bring Matip back
Henderson,
in. Yeah.
Surely after Keita's performance last night, Henderson has to start.
All right.
In the Champions League final.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Liverpool fans, pick the team for us. Mark Lawrence is going to join us in about 5 minutes' time. We'll get him to pick the team for the Champions League final as well, assuming everybody is fit. Bournemouth were promoted last night, which means that we're going to have a Premier League goalkeeper next season who hasn't been close to the Ireland team, really. But
he started one massive game and it went badly wrong against Serbia.
Since then.
Been seen since.
Yeah, hasn't been close to it, you would say. Like, nobody's talking about him versus the other two. But if he's playing week in, week out next year in the Premier League, which, maybe they'll replace him, who knows, in the summer, or hopefully they won't. Seems like they don't need to, and he's got a good relationship with the manager. He's got to come back into the reckoning, right?
Absolutely. I think this conversation around Bazunu Kelleher is far too set in stone. It's totally out of Stephen Kenny's control, even what happens next season. So Gavin Bazunu, player of the season at Portsmouth, comes back to Manchester City. To Manchester City, have they seen enough to say, actually, we want you to stay here and be second choice, be third choice? Maybe we'll finally get rid of Scott Carson and you can be the other guy with Zach Stefan and Ederson. And suddenly Gavin Bazunu spends a year not playing any football. Or maybe he goes and plays championship. He's at a higher level again. Likewise, Caoimhín Kelleher. And if Mark Travers has 6 months of good quality first-team football in the Premier League, and if Bazunu isn't playing, and if Kelleher isn't playing, it's going to be very hard for Stephen Kenny not to reward that.
Yeah. And what about Nathan Collins? Is he in our team at the moment?
Well, he's probably put himself in a position where he's next in line. Like the back three at the moment. We see Doherty's injured, so Coleman you'd expect to go back to right wing back, which opens up a space alongside Duffy and Egan.
And Duffy's not playing.
I would say Nathan Collins Duffy will still play for Ireland during the summer. Now there's 4 matches, so he's going to end up doing a little bit of rotation. But I think at the moment Nathan Collins has probably stepped ahead of Darragh O'Shea just with O'Shea's injury. So I think your back three would be Collins, Duffy, Egan with Coleman at right wing back. But think about 3 years' time, if all were to go according to plan, and you have
Andrew O'Malley, Nathan Collins,
Darragh O'Shea, Nathan Collins is your back
Virgil
three.
van Dijk and Rio Ferdinand playing for the Republic of Ireland, according to
all rolled into one.
Yeah, no, the two of them, 1-on-1. Yeah, it'd be amazing. So he's Ireland's Virgil van Dijk, says Pat Dolan. We take that. We would take, on the range of outcomes of Nathan Collins' career at the moment, we're like, yeah, you could be Virgil van Dijk. We take that.
Yeah. We'll cash in on that one.
Him and Rio together. That's a World Cup winning team right there. And maybe the Euros. Maybe not the World Cup. We don't need to be too greedy.
Has Michael Owen even seen Nathan Collins play yet?
Exactly. Tweet him there, at Michael Owen. The other big news over the last 24 hours or so is that Shamrock Rovers may be on the hunt for a new manager. This seems to have come out of left field, Nathan. I was completely unaware that Stephen Bradley was on the market for teams like Lincoln City. So Lincoln City have been linked with him. They have sought permission. What's the latest on this?
I think that's where it is, that it seems conversations are ongoing between Lincoln and Stephen Bradley, and the timing has caught everybody off guard, but it's probably caught everyone off guard because Irish football runs a summer season, whereas actually if you're Lincoln, now is the perfect time. Michael Appleton has gone as manager. They finished 17th in League One, and they want a manager who can come in and dictate their transfer policy and get in ahead of pre-season training, get a full pre-season ahead of the start of the season. It seems their football director spends a lot of time in Ireland looking at players, has obviously seen a lot of Shamrock Rovers and likes what he sees with Stephen Bradley. And while initially you would look at this and think Shamrock Rovers going for a third straight league title, heading in towards Champions League football this season, building something really good out in Tala, why would you leave? But it's just a reminder of where Ireland is in the footballing pyramid, that he would be going to Lincoln. I think you could say an unfashionable team, certainly as we would see it, who get a far bigger attendance every game, up at 9,000. His wage budget would be transformed. Over 5 million a year, his own personal salary, I'd imagine, would be transformed. And his own reputation, if he was to achieve something at Lincoln, would also be transformed compared to what he could do at Shamrock Rovers, unless they went on a run in Europe, which, there's really no guarantees. So on the outside, it seems like a complete shock, and it could well be an absolute shock to the system, to Shamrock Rovers ahead of their biggest week of the season, where they've 3 home games in a row over the next 7 days, finishing up with Derry City in Tala on Friday week, and they're 3 points behind Tala. This could really shake up what happens in the Premier Division this season. But from Stephen Bradley's point of view, and reports are that Stephen McPhail and Glenn Cronin could also be in the mix to leave as well, it's a bit of a no-brainer, because unfortunately, there's no football industry for coaches really in this country. So if Stephen Bradley, if this week were to go badly wrong, if Europe doesn't go well during the summer, and if he ends up leaving Shamrock Rovers at the end of the season, where do you go now? Where do you go? Like, the next job is maybe a part-time job, whereas actually go to Lincoln, and Lincoln last season got to the playoff final, get promoted to Championship. Suddenly you're in that industry where you constantly have a job.
Who would replace him at Rovers? The lads were speculating about potentially Robbie Keane. Is that realistic?
Well, he's very well connected at the club, and he's volunteered at the club at underage system. And when you look around the board and various people behind the scenes, he would have a lot of links there. So he is a huge name. Remember, they're in a very different position to where they were when Stephen Bradley came in and at the end of 2015, where Rovers hadn't won the league for 5 years. So Dundalk were the dominant team. They tried to do something different and did it brilliantly by bringing in a young management team. Bradley was early 30s at that stage. McPhail had just been retired. And they went with the academy system, brought in a lot of young players. Now they're the big dogs. Now they are the champions back to back. So do you look for a different type of manager? Do you want that big name who can elevate the club in different ways? And Robbie Keane is most certainly that. He's obviously on the lookout for a job. Keane against Duff is something everybody can sign up for. If you were to look inside the league, there's probably no real options there at the moment, unless they were to go for Keith Long and all his experience with Bohemians. They've obviously dipped into bowls quite a few times for players over the last few years. But Rory Higgins isn't going to leave Derry with their billionaire owner back at his hometown club, top of the league. Then they've
Vinnie Perth.
Somebody. Well, I was just going to say, if you're looking for people just outside, like Vinnie, I'm sure would feel that he should be in the mix. League winner with Dundalk. He was a local boy.
From Tala, I think it's a big deal.
Played with Rovers. He's a regular. Anytime I'm out in Tala, you see Vinny there sitting in the posh seats in Tala. So I'm sure he's got some connections there as well. The other names, internally and maybe in the short term, Stephen Robinson, who's running the academy, Graham Gartland has been doing some work with us. Maybe they're potentially in the running. But Stephen Rice is one of the more interesting names who keeps coming up over the last 24 hours. So Stephen Rice is currently Stephen Kenny's chief scout and opposition analyst. He replaced Rory Higgins. He is really highly rated, has a great history at Rovers, was their captain, scored the goal at White Hart Lane, knows the academy, coached the 17s and 19s. He would probably be, alongside Robbie Keane, the favourite, but that would mean Stephen Kenny potentially losing another member of his backroom staff. And I don't know if you saw in the last 48 hours, John Eustace, his new assistant coach, has been strongly linked with a move back to England and potentially a full-time job with Queen's Park Rangers or another side in the Championship.